joined by Stephen A. Smith in the Valley. Stephen A., I'll get your thoughts in just a moment. Tim Legler here in studio. And Tim, as you're watching the game in Tony's office here, it's your office. Tony's never coming back to the building. As you're watching this game tonight unfold, a lot of different ways you could go for the theme. What's the main storyline for you?
It's that the Bucks, look, they came with it. They played hard tonight. They made the adjustments defensively. They pursued Chris Paul and Devin Booker. They fought over screens. They put Drew Holiday on Chris Paul. Just like all the things I said after game one they should do, they did. And yet, Scott, you looked up after the early onslaught by the Bucks, and they're trailing in the first quarter at some point. And then 3 straight 30-point quarters by the Suns, despite the fact that I felt like the Bucks were competing. Every time a ball was deflected, it came off the glass, there were bodies on the floor. The Phoenix Suns ended up with it, and then they got points out of it. They converted it. I mean, back-breaking type plays when you've got the Bucks laying it on the line defensively and not coming up with those balls, the Suns would not only get it, they would then move it out of that and make the Bucks continue to chase them. I just thought the connection that the Suns had offensively tonight was special. That's how you make 23s in a game. There's such a trust level on that team that if it's my turn, it's coming my way, and you can guarantee if it's your turn and I have it, it's going to come to you when you're supposed to get it. That, to me, summed up the way the Suns played the last 3 quarters. 3 straight 30-point quarters on a night when I feel like the Bucks played pretty well defensively for the most part. That's kind of scary for Milwaukee going forward.
That's how it felt here watching it. Stephen A. Smith there in the building. How would you describe what you saw from a Bucks team that, as Tim said, gave everything, but the Suns team constantly had the answers? That's awfully impressive given that this is their first playoff run together. What'd you see?
Well, I don't disagree with what Tim Legler, the great Tim Legler, pointed out. What I would challenge him on, however, is what he left out. Yes, they came in with a game plan. They made the necessary adjustments to start game 2. But obviously, if you're Budenholzer, you're going up against Monty Williams and a coach on the floor in CP3 who hit about 50% of his shots, finished with 23 points, 8 assists, even though he turned the ball over 6 times. You see Devin Booker hitting shots early, okay, from 3-point range, and assistant coaches are looking to talk to Budenholzer, and Budenholzer's not even listening to them, okay? He's not making any in-game adjustments. That was a pivotal problem as far as I'm concerned. We can look at Drew Holiday and no 7 for 21 shooting. He was absolutely awful offensively. Middleton, he really needs to look in the mirror. When Pat Connaughton has more points than you coming off the bench, he had 14, you had 11, even though you took 6 more shots. That's incredibly problematic. You waste an effort from Giannis Antetokounmpo, who was nothing short of sensational, and primarily because you didn't make the necessary in-game adjustments. It's like any time you throw a monkey wrench into the plan that Budenholzer had coming into it, then he seems to be a bit flummoxed. And I thought that was a problem tonight. They couldn't make the necessary adjustments. And by the way, guys, Tim Legler, me, Scott Van Pelt, none of us mentioned Mikal Bridges. 27 points tonight and 7 rebounds. And he hit about 50% of his shots as well. They probably didn't count on that. That hurt him, but they let Devin Booker get off early, find his rhythm, find his groove. They did very little about that until it really mattered most. And at the end of the day, it cost them.
Well, Bridges is going to have an opportunity to be talked about as he will join us here momentarily off a spectacular performance. And I wonder, Tim, as you hear Stephen A. describe the adjustments that Budenholzer made to start but didn't make here, it's a make-miss league. I mean, I feel like the Bucks played awfully good defense, but they got chasing, and that one sequence we showed on 10 passes, I don't know how they could have been any better.
Yeah, to Stephen A's point, and he's right about this, when they go watch the film tomorrow, if there is one thing that they never really adjusted to was an overcommitment to dribble penetration. You don't need to flood 3-4 guys to the lane on dribble penetration against Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges. You don't. You've got length at the rim with Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's where the Bucks came up small. Too many guys flooding to the paint, and watch how many times in this game you'd have a drive from the right wing and a kick to the left corner because they're floating to the corner off of that penetration.
Right.
Mike Budenholzer actually said it at his end of quarter interview. If there's one thing I saw in the first quarter, I think we're over-helping on penetration. They never really adjusted to that.
Right.
This is a team that 16 made threes through 3 quarters, had 4 more in the fourth. That really put the game away with some real daggers when the Bucks made it close.
Stephen A., you and I, we made a mistake a couple of years ago. With this Bucks team, they had a 2-0 series lead on Toronto. And you and I, on this show, we used the term wrap. We were incorrect. I'm not asking you if this is a wrap, but based on what you've seen in these 2 games in Phoenix, What would have to happen for you to believe that something other than the Suns winning 2 more games in this series is going to happen?
Well, Giannis has to get some help offensively from the backcourt, whether it's Jrue Holiday or Middleton. Both of them are being paid exorbitant amount of dollars to show up when it counts, and they've been non-existent as far as I'm concerned on the offensive end of the floor. That would be one thing. Another thing is attack DeAndre Ayton. Remember, Dario Saric has torn his ACL, okay? And now tonight, Craig goes down, and he's got an injury as well. They're very thin on their front line. The Milwaukee Bucks are effective on their front line offensively. Attack the interior. Get Ayton out of there and make Phoenix go considerably small. So when you go small as the Milwaukee Bucks, you're still big because you got Giannis at the 5. This to me is something that they should be doing, and it's very simple. I'm not going to call it a wrap. We're not going to make the same mistake, SVP, that we made a couple of years ago against Toronto. But I will tell you this: you better win these 2 games, because if you only win 1, I'm not going to disrespect them by assuming they're going to get swept. But if you don't win both of these games in Milwaukee, this series is going to end in 5 right here in Phoenix, and Phoenix is going to capture the championship. Milwaukee's got to go back. They got to win both games. They got to stop worrying about sending out petitions to keep people like me from coming to town. And instead, what they need to do is put forth the petitions against their coach and players and say, rise to the occasion and get it done, because we got a lot on the line here. They've got to play better. They've got to play better defensively, and your guards, who are making a lot of money in Jrue Holiday and Middleton, who both can play the game. They're not scrubs. You got to show up, and Giannis shouldn't have to be on the sideline imploring you to step it up. You should know automatically that's what you're supposed to be doing. It's the damn finals. It's the NBA finals. This ain't a regular season game. It's on the line. They got to show up.
The point that Stephen A. makes about Saric being injured and Craig going out is interesting, because I felt like we heard I felt like both Van Gundy and Jackson pointed out there was a fatigue level that evidenced itself at times with the Suns. Again, they had every answer, but at some point that depth, which was a luxury for this Suns team, is going to become, I don't want to say a weakness, but it's not a luxury anymore. The fatigue does feel like it could be a factor moving forward for the Suns team based on the absence of certainly Saric. We'll wait to find out about Craig.
Yeah, defensively, no question. They're going to be very thin up front. I'm not even sure what their solution is going to be when they have to give DeAndre Ayton a blow now. They're not going to play Kaminsky a lot of minutes, so it's no question. Monty Williams has more buttons to push now as they go forward. The problem is this, though. When you look at the Suns' role players, and you look at a guy like Bridges, who is a role player on this team, has 27 points. The reason that these guys have these kind of nights is because the ball is shared to such an extent that the looks that they get, the quality of the shot that they take, they always stay in their lane, and it just makes guys play with an enormous amount of confidence and comfort zone. They don't have to try to do anything outside of themselves. And Bridges was pretty good tonight putting the ball on the floor, which he normally doesn't do. But it all stems from the fact that their role players are confident because Chris Paul and Devin Booker are controlling the game. Those guys are going to get great opportunities. And right now they're capitalizing, and the Bucks stars are not playing well.
Tim Legler, we'll get more from you a little bit later. Stephen A. Smith, quickly, going to get to Coach Bud. Go ahead, quickly, Stephen A.
I just want to chime in with what Tim Legler just pointed out that Phoenix does offensively, Milwaukee's not doing. They're not sharing the basketball. They're not trusting one another. They're not creating a lot of movement without the basketball, which is making it easier for Phoenix to defend them even when they're shorthanded, because you're not challenging them. That's the problem.
Outscored by 33 from 3. That's going to be a hard math equation to make up for. You start the day early and you stay up late. First take coming in the morning, Stephen A. As always, the time's appreciated, my friend.
My man. See y'all later.
All right. Stephen A. Smith, Tim Legler. Thanks, Tim. You'll be back in a minute. Coach Bud, with thoughts on falling in this 0-2 hole.
You always give credit to the defense. Those guys, do a good job. And there's probably a few looks that I think that they got to go in. When you're playing against a good defensive team, you get a good, clean one. Jrue was getting to the paint a lot. I liked his aggressiveness. So, I think we need all 3 of those guys. And, I think they just keep working. They'll come good.
To quote the great Jay-Z, allow me to reintroduce myself as we say hello to Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson once again. Gentlemen, as you watch the disparity in threes, and the way the ball was shared on that Phoenix Suns side, they take this 2-0 series lead. Jeff, I'll begin with you. The biggest concern for Coach Bud and the Bucks as they go home, other than the obvious 0-2 hole, is what?
Their backcourt production offensively. I think they've got to get Holiday and Middleton started early in the game. I agree with Mike Budenholzer, who's done such a great job with this Milwaukee team. They got some good looks. Holiday did, particularly early, driving it hard, just not able to convert enough.
Mark, and it was interesting because I felt like Drew was really aggressive offensively early, and they played really well. But there was this barrage of threes from the Suns that allowed them to take the lead there in the second. They're up double digits at the half. When you play that well in a game of this magnitude early and you find yourself down double digits at the half, how demoralizing is that?
It can be very demoralizing, and especially when your best player is rolling. Giannis had an incredible night. He was spectacular. Kept his foot on the gas pedal, attacked the paint area, made plays time and time again. The other guys, what Jeff was talking about, that backcourt has got to get going. And I point the finger directly to Chris Middleton. He is too elite of an offensive weapon to just be a regular guy on the floor. They've got to find a way to get those guys clicking on all cylinders where they can all be aggressive. But Chris Middleton has got to get his share of touches.
And Jeff, to the point that you guys are making, how fixable is this? I mean, what, they make 9 threes? I think they got outscored by 33 from behind the arc. If a couple shots go in a game that was 5 points in the fourth, we're talking about a coin flip. Maybe they're not as far off as it might appear. Is that reasonable?
That's more than reasonable. Often the difference between teams and in games is it's a very small, microscopic line. And right now, we always talk about, shooting, and, one team, sometimes we overreact when one team shoots it well and another team doesn't, and we talk about intangibles like chemistry and intensity, and really it comes down to one thing. Both teams played well, they shared it well, one team shot it very well, Milwaukee didn't. It's that simple.
We've got Mikal Bridges, who's now mic'd up with us, which means we can say thank you, gentlemen. We look forward to talking again later in the series. Thanks, as always, for the time, man.
Thanks, Scott.
You.
All right. Which way am I turning? There we go. Mikal Bridges, hi. Scott Van Pelt, welcome to the show. Congratulations on the 2-0 series lead and the significant contribution you've made. This is the finals. It's the biggest stage there is in this sport. You all have looked incredibly comfortable on this stage. How would you best describe how you have felt in this arena?
Honestly, it's a blessing to be here. Just feeling confident, just trying to go out there, whatever I work on, just use it out there, play hard, and be aggressive, and try to help my teammates on the other end and defend as hard as I can.
How do you best describe your role as you understand it with Paul, with Booker, with Ayton? I mean, it's a hell of a luxury, I would think, to have you, a guy that's capable of getting 27, but how do you understand and envision the role that you try to fill each night?
I'll just be aggressive, man. I know with Book and CP, they're just unbelievable with the ball, and I just try to help them when the teams try to overhelp, and just try to be aggressive. DA gets me open as well, just him being a force. When I drive, they give me layups or jump shots as they worry about him. So, I just try to play as hard as I can, be aggressive when I'm off ball, and just try to make an impact.
From your college days at Nova to now, these big stages I keep talking about, you've lived on them, you've thrived on them, and I'm a big environment and atmosphere guy. Help me understand what the building has been like for these two games, because I'm sitting on the other side of the country and I'm watching, and it seems absolutely bananas. What's it been like?
It's been unbelievable, man. I feel like we have the best fans, and trust me, if you were here, you will feel the energy. It's just unbelievable, especially when we're making runs, and it makes it more exciting to come out here and play every night.
Well, congratulations on the 27 and the 2-0 series lead. Appreciate you taking the time to stop, and best of luck the rest of the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, 3 little things here on a big 2-0 series lead for the Suns. They're the 36th team to take a 2-0 series lead in the NBA Finals. 31 of the previous 35, that's 89%, won the title. Monty Williams now becomes the 10th head coach to grab a 2-0 lead in his NBA Finals debut. Given the math of the previous equation, you can guess that probably went pretty well from there. 8 of the 9 went on to win. Avery Johnson, 2006 Mavericks, not able to get that one finished. Phoenix team now ahead of all the others in team history, breaking a tie for the most home wins in a single postseason with 8, as well as the most wins overall in a single postseason with 14. And again, one more number from this night, 20. That's the number of threes they made. Bucks had just 9, that 33-point differential from beyond the arc, a huge reason why they win this one by 10. We're with you till 1 o'clock Eastern time, just getting started with our coverage of Game 2. Before we get to break, let's not forget the Bucks were down 2-0 against the Nets, where they came back to win that series on the road in 7 games, which is why Stephen A. and I aren't going to break out that rap word again. Not going to make that mistake again. Still a couple.
Michael Wilbon and Stephen A. Smith join us in tandem to break it down. So, guys, let's start with your biggest takeaway from the game. Mike, you go first. What did you see?
I think my takeaway is the Phoenix Suns are just better. I'm not going to say the series is over. I'm not going there when the game hasn't been played in the other site.
Right.
The Suns are better. They're just a better team. They're better in terms of chemistry and their ability to work together. I mean, those 20 made threes, Stan, out of 40 shots from 3. It's just beautiful. The passing, the chemistry they have, the way it's orchestrated. And Milwaukee doesn't make the necessary adjustments to thwart that. Something extraordinary has to happen to change this series because the Suns are better. You agree? We've seen that now.
Let me tell you this. Let me simplify it. Monty Williams has been a better coach this series.
Question.
CP3 is a better floor general than anybody Milwaukee has.
Yep.
And they have better perimeter shooters, a better collection of perimeter shooters. Now let's get to the Milwaukee side. Clearly you need to attack on the interior. They weren't doing that enough. You're not making your outside shots. And you've got 2 coaches that you're playing against in Monty Williams and Chris Paul, who know what they're doing and are dictating and controlling tempo and defensive matchups that Budenholzer it doesn't seem he's been capable to make the adjustments.
How about the pattern they fell back into, Stan? What happens in the third quarter when Milwaukee really has made up a deficit? Oh, excuse me. Giannis has made up a deficit.
By
Get to the 5 or 6. What happens each time? Somehow, Milwaukee Bucks start switching again defensively, and Devin Booker is on an island again with Lopez for the second straight game, something that they even admitted we can't do that. And he just lobs a couple of threes in, game over. And it's like we just saw this in the previous game. Game 1, same floor, same venue, not work. And they're going back to it. So now you're wondering, okay, how much, if I'm not going to say it's a wrap, and I don't think Stephen A. is ready to say it's a wrap
I'm
yet.
not either.
But how much adjustment do they need to make to get a second game? They can do one game. You would think they're going to go home on Sunday and they're going to play with a world of energy and focus.
Right.
But can they get a second game in this series?
It's something that's important to say. Number one, you better win both games at home, because if you only win one and you come back here for Game 5, this ain't the Clippers. You ain't going back to Milwaukee. You're going to lose this series in 5 games. But the most important thing, I would say this, and Mike Wilbon and myself, I think is accurate when I'm speaking for you. Nobody's advocating a coach being fired or anything like that. You're in the finals, for crying out loud. But what we are saying is this. When you win the playoffs, Budenholzer came into this postseason on the hot seat. He was in the second round. They said, you better win or else. He was in the conference finals, and they said, you better win or else, which means that there are an abundance of people upstairs for the Milwaukee Bucks that have looked at some of the decisions that he's made and said, does he have the pulse of this team? Does he really, really get what these guys can do and what they can't do? They better win Game 3 and 4. They better win Game 3 and 4. I'm telling you that right now.
Better get Game 3 and have the proper adjustments. Look, they have an extra day.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to figure out. We've seen series change, but there's nothing about the way the Phoenix Suns are playing that says they're going to be on the wrong end of that change.
Yeah.
You know how I know I'm dealing with superior broadcast talent here? I ask one question, and you guys answer all the other ones I had before I even get to them. So
well,
makes my job easy.
Friendships, and all that means is that we aim to please. If only Milwaukee felt the same way about Giannis Antetokounmpo. We want to please him. If they felt that way, it might be a different storyline that we're talking about right now.
All right,
but they didn't.
We'll see what happens when they get the Deer District live in the building for Game 3. Guys, we appreciate it.
All right.
Dan, thanks, man.